What up, YouTube? This is Steven Talbot. This is Tabby Rex. So today, we're going to talk about the PlayStation Experience press conference that PlayStation just had pretty much a day ago. So as you were watching it, I'm recording this on the Sunday, the day after the press conference. So I just want to give you my quick thoughts about the press conference, what I thought about it, what I didn't like, what I liked, so all those great things. And so let's begin. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably talk about kind of the order and then kind of go from there and probably then go to like just really random thoughts. And so please, join with me on this voyage. And so basically, how this press conference really started was with Uncharted. You know, the game, pretty much their game of the year for pretty much last year. You know, Uncharted 4 did a great job. Was awesome. I loved it personally. You should pick it up if you haven't picked up Uncharted yet, or you need to get something for the holidays. Go play Uncharted because it's well worth your time. And so they announced DLC for Uncharted 4, and it was really good because it used two characters that we probably haven't seen as much. They were Chloe, who really wasn't covered much in Uncharted 4, and one of the new characters for Uncharted 4. And it was good to see this kind of a backstory. I think it's like a prequel type expansion. I think in a sense it's a story. They did announce it was like a story, so it's about an hour and a half. I thought it was a little bit too long in terms of the actual time they showed us, but it looked really good. It looked a lot different actually than Uncharted 4, so that'll be pretty fun to play. It was always good to see that, but although it really caught me somewhat by surprise in terms of who they picked. They picked Chloe. I think the most obvious choice for like Uncharted DLC would have been Sam. Although it may be that they're saving Sam for later on, because I think there's a lot of good stories either after the Uncharted 4 or before the fact in terms of Uncharted 4 for Sam, because there's a lot of question marks in terms of Sam. So I wish they kind of would have considered that, but it's all right that they chose Chloe, which is a worthwhile character that people have come really attached with over the past couple of games with Uncharted 2 and 3 with Chloe. So it was good to see her, and so it was good with that. And then they moved to the second interesting surprise, although it's not as surprising. I was hearing rumors of this game coming out, and so Capcom, they announced the second thing they really announced was Capcom v Marvel, and so it was really cool. It was cool that they used Mega Man, who is not a Street Fighter type player, show that kind of a character, and then they showed I think Iron Man in there, and then they showed Miss Marvel and a couple other characters. It was interesting. I was watching someone on Twitter kind of talk about this game and kind of gave it a really interesting opinion that it's kind of been believed that it's going to be mostly MCU type games, and so like any of the characters that really followed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, those characters will probably be in this game, and some of the characters that that are owned by other companies like Fox or so like X-Men and I think maybe some Fast X 4 may not make it into it, which is kind of interesting. And what the person that I was really watching was talking on Twitter on was kind of pointing to the diversity in terms of women and like how they weren't going to be showed very much, because if you look at MCU, there's not a lot of women. There's like the Black Widow, for instance, and the Scarlet Witch, and so those are the two are women superheroes, and so the lack thereof in terms of this game is going to be all male. So hopefully Marvel kind of will figure it out and maybe add some females and stuff like that. I thought that was a real interesting point about that. But I'm super excited for that game. I was a fan of Marvel vs. Capcom 3. That was one of the fighting games that really hold dear to my heart, although it is super hard to find. If you're looking for it on like Dreamcast, really, really hard to find, but super love that game. Love that game to pieces. And so after that, they went into two other trailers. They went into, I believe, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard's trailer, and then they went into this Ace Combat trailer as well, which they've been really quiet about Ace Combat. There hasn't been very much details. It's good to see that there's a trailer for that, although they haven't released, I think, a time-specific information. I think it's going to be a real interesting game. What's cool about that one is it's going to be a combat game in VR, which is really solid. It looks like a real in-depth type of game, which right now there's only about 2 or 3 total VR games that are probably, there's 60 title type budgets. And so this is going to be another $60 type game. And then kind of going also with that, Resident Evil 7 looks good. I'm not a big fan of Resident Evil 7. I'm just not a big fan of horror games in general. Looking forward to checking it out, kind of hearing opinions about that game. I'll be interested to see what they do with it. It's interesting that it's coming out on the 24th of January because it's kind of like, it's a weird and interesting time. Like, it's after Christmas, after all the holidays. It'll be interesting to see what that game does. Like, is it going to have, what was it? There was like a horror game that came out around that time, about 2 years ago, I believe. I'm forgetting that name. And so, like, it will be interesting to see if that has that type of appeal like that game did. Because that game found like a life of its own because it came out in January. So those are good games. And then kind of goes into, I guess, the Year of Dreams. It's interesting. Like I was listening to, there's this guy on Kind of Funny called Tim Geddes, and he's been really commenting about these press conferences and basically call them the Year of Dreams. Because every single time PlayStation comes out, they basically come out with games from your past, and they were trying to basically remake them or show out, these games that you're like, oh, I would never thought that would ever come as this, and now it is. And so, like, the past couple of years has been Final Fantasy VII Remake, got announced, and it's going to come out, sooner or later come out, and probably by 2020. And then, Crash Bandicoot got announced during E3 last year. And so there's been interesting announcements of like these old type games that we didn't really believe exist, and it's been kind of really cool. I think what's kind of really interesting to think about that is just like the nostalgia, like PlayStation unleashed the level of like nostalgiaism. Like they have such a big library that they could just roll out games and like and they're like, oh wow, people are like super excited for that, and so which gives them a really big, like, I think bonus over Microsoft in a lot of sense because they can just roll out these specific titles, and then that really helps with their press conference overall. And it's kind of funny to watch them do that. But this year was like a lot of the last press conferences, like they announced Parappa the Rapper. They're going to do a demo for that, and then they're going to do HD versions of Patapon and Loco Moco, which is good to see. Those are two good Vita games or PlayStation 3 games that were really good, really popular. It's good to see revisions of those at least, even though we may not get new versions of those games. It's good to just see them live on and have another life. And I think one thing I've heard in recent talks and other conversations with people at Shuei Ishida and stuff like that. They really are looking at the sales of these games to see if they're going to remake these classics. So if you pick up Crash Bandicoot remastered or like Wipeout remastered, I think that was one game that got shown as well at PSX, or Paparappa or any of these games. Like keep in mind that PlayStation is watching those sales, and like if you really want to see those games again, buy those games, give those games support, because at the end of the day, like they will try to remake those games if they see good sales for that, and so that's exciting to see. And I was excited to see those type of games. And then they kind of went into more. It's good to see a lot of JRPGs, Danganronpa, Persona 5. They had a couple other cool games. And they made appearances. YS, I believe, Origins, which is a game that's been out for about 10 years, but only recently, since like 2012, like the English version has existed. So it's good to see like a remaster of that coming out. So them really pushing for that. It's also good to see Vita games in general. Like I think there were like 5 or 6 different Vita games. I thought that was really cool to see those type of games in action, and real excited to see what also comes out with those specific titles. I think another thing was interesting in terms of, I think one of the most interesting instances right now that should be is VR, like PlayStation VR, because they just recently announced it. Like they recently got it. And I actually recently bought the system. So they'll have a PlayStation VR review sometime soon, or a discussion about that. because I really want to discuss about it because I think it's real fascinating. And so I thought you may hear like, the second wave of VR. Like there's going to give you a list of games that kind of looking for. So far, like we got PlayStation, Resident Evil 7 and this other game, this flight simulator. But we haven't got any other clear indications about what other games are coming out. We kind of know like Star Wars is maybe coming out, Star Trek maybe having a game, some other type of games are coming out. So basically all we got was reel. Like we got a flat reel. And so it was interesting to just see that. Like they did it, like now it's any figures about PlayStation. That's what was really interesting about PlayStation is like during this conference, they didn't announce anything in terms of sales of the PlayStation or even how good the PlayStation VR sold. So that was real interesting to see them not even talk about that. But I wish they would have gave a better scissor reel, like even list the names. I would have agreed with kind of that type of thing, and maybe give it more in depth, like how PlayStation VR is going, like what are developers doing about it and stuff like that. I would like to have some more concrete understanding as a guy who just paid $400 about it, who's kind of somewhat worried about it. I'm not worried about it, but I'm like, I want to see more stuff built for PlayStation VR. So I wish there was something talking about that, or something like we're going to add PlayStation VR to PS Plus. Now you can get a free PlayStation VR game or something like that. I would like something like that. But overall, I thought it was all right. So it's good to see that. I think another shout out it was good to see Housemarque's new game. Looked really solid. It also is good to see a game by Supergiant Games, which is a company I really like. They're making this multiplayer game called Pry. Go check it out. And also look at Housemarque. Housemarque is a really solid developer. They made several really top-notch games, like Alien Nation came out, Zombie Nation. They make a lot of good top-down shooters, and they all look really good. So good to see that coming out, in the near future. So overall, I thought it was good. Lastly, the biggest drop, which was kind of The Last of Us Part 2. Like they announced Last of Us Part 2, which is interesting. Like I thought they probably shouldn't have even done that. Like it's good that they did it. Like they now, like their entire plans in terms of games is really revealed. Like you can kind of check off the boxes. Like you got Detroit, you got Horizon, you got Last of Us Part 2, you got the Spider-Man game, you got a pretty good list of games that are coming out for the PlayStation, which is good to see. It was good to see The Last of Us getting noted. So that kind of ends any idea like, Naughty Dog is going to, go different ways or something like that. It pretty much was, which was kind of confirmed, was it was in development for like the past at least 2 years, maybe. Which is interesting because that also confirms that there has been probably a second team as well. Even during when Uncharted 4 was getting announced. What was interesting about Uncharted 4 was like the Uncharted team that was helping out with the game. So the two main guys that did Uncharted had to basically take over the Uncharted 4 game and do that one. So what was interesting is the fact that when they took it over, you would have thought like maybe the Last of Us team would have not stopped, would have stopped and just come back and be a part of the Uncharted 4 team. But that maybe not been the case exactly. They just started working on Last of Us 2. I think there may have been a bigger team than we thought there was, which is interesting, which may point there may be a earlier date for Last of Us Part 2, although I would say 2018, maybe 2020 at the most, would be my guess in terms of when it's come out. But it's good to see like the entire lineup. There's so many good games to look forward to. Like I'm excited for like Detroit or God of War or Last of Us Part 2. Like all those games are super exciting to see, and I can't wait to play them. Like I really can't wait. Hopefully there's a multiplayer type game. But overall, super excited, super stoked to see those games, and I think really I agree with Tim Geddes. Dear Dreams is still continuing. They are clutch. Sony is so clutch in terms of what they're providing. Guys, down below, just write what you thought about the conference. Did you like the conference? Did you not like the conference? I would love to know your opinions about the conference. Always like to read them, like to comment about them. Thank you for watching this video. Stay with me. There's going to be some new stuff happening in the near future. Love to share it with you. And all right, have a great day. All right, bye. This is Tabby Rex.